First thing you do, you go buy your tissue paper, and then you take your tissue paper, be sure you turn it long ways, and you glue it in strips of 3. Now if your tissue paper is really small, you could do strips of 4. Does everybody see how I made a big long strip of 3? When you've made 7 or 8 of these, and I'll explain later how you know what a good number is, you line them all up together like this. And where did my stapler go? Jarrell, would you walk over and get the stapler from the back? I thought I had one here. And meanwhile, hand me those clips and I'll use those. Okay, you want it staple, clip, paper clip, whatever, the 4 corners together. Try to line them up at one end pretty well. The other end isn't as crucial. Thanks, Jarrell. Okay. And you would do the same at the bottom. Doesn't really matter which you call the top and the bottom, but the end that you get lined up best should become your top once you've got them all lined up together. Okay, now you're going to mark the center of the top. Everybody look on the handout at the second diagram. You want to mark near the center of the top. So I'm going to use my centimeters. This is just about exactly 50 centimeters. So I'm going to mark it at 25. And I'm going to draw a line down so that I make a point, a little triangle, between the bottom of that first piece of paper and the center of the top. And you're going to cut those off. You're going to do the same thing on the bottom, but this time, instead of marking it to a point, you're going to mark it not quite to a point. Now, depending on how wide your paper is, you can decide, but I'm going to give about 12 centimeters either way. And you want to try to get it centered, which I don't think I have right now. So I'm going to go in about 35, and I'm going to go in about 15 over here. So you're going to cut the bottom down at an angle, but not completely to a point. And that's going to be the part of your balloon that's the opening. If the opening turns out to be really big, you can kind of gather it up when you put a wire in the bottom to close it up. Now you're simply going to cut those off. And you can cut all 7 or 8 sheets at once. Easy so far, right? The tricky part comes when you start putting them together, and that's why I wanted to demonstrate that. I'm going to show you the easiest way to get them all together. But you can see why you would want to make your strips and let them all dry before you stack them up on top of each other and try to cut them. When they're drying, you might lay them over the back of a chair or something so that they don't stick together. I used Elmer's glue, which is a good glue. Don't use a glue stick. It doesn't stick well enough. And if you do use Elmer's glue, don't put it on really thick because you don't want it to soak through the paper too much. Just a thin line is fine. If you have a cat in the house, I would be careful where you hang these, though. I've had students come in, oh, my cat tore it up. And I know cats can probably do that. It's like the dog ate my homework, only it's kind of true. And I guess a dog could get after it too if you weren't careful. Now all this scrap you don't need, but you might want to hang on to a little bit of it because if you punch a hole, you can always use a little piece as a patch. Okay, now here comes the tricky part. You have to put these together. I don't know if you can picture how these are going to become, can you hold those, Jarrell? Thank you. A balloon, but you literally have to piece all the points together. They're going to make the top. So it's very hard to stretch them together if you overlap them because they're not the same shape. How many of you sew? Took a sewing class ever? I need the glue behind here. We're going to put these together the same way you would if you were sewing. You're going to take the glue and put it from the top all the way down one side. Notice I'm going a little less than an inch in from the edge.
You make it inside out and then
Yeah, that's what you're going to do exactly, Madison. Don't go across the bottom because that has to stay open. And then you're going to take the next piece, and if you've got some color scheme in mind, I didn't. I just stuck pieces together. You just literally put this right on top. It's like sewing a seam.
Terrell, would you want to grab that, sweetie?
And it makes
See
it
how it's in
real
the wrong
easy
place?
to have the pieces
There you
match
go.
up by shape.
Thanks, hon.
And this is where a partner comes in handy. Don't worry if the bottom doesn't match up exactly because you're going to fold the bottom under to make, okay? Now, at this point you want to let this dry. You can actually make pairs like this if you want and then put the pairs together later. But either way, you want to let that dry. Now, you're going to have 7 or 8 of these strips, probably. I'm going to give you a little formula so you can figure out how many strips you could make based on how long your strip is. Because there's a nice formula that works so you don't get a balloon that's too wide. If your balloon's too wide, it literally can't open up all the way and it'll have like pleats in it. And that's adding extra mass, making it harder to be lifted. So you want to be sure you don't make it too big around. So once you've got a pair dry like this, you're going to open it up. Notice I have what I'm calling the seam side will be down. And if this were clothing you were going to wear, we call this the right side because the seam isn't sticking out. You just take another piece like this. You can hold that a minute. And the glue. And you put the glue all the way down one side again. Start at the very top, all the way down from the tip, all the way down.
Now, if we did need help with this, could we bring it in?
You're more than welcome to bring it in and work on it here. There's not a lot of places to leave it here. I have had students like hang them up over on the little top strip over there above the top board. And then you just, again, this is where it helps to have a partner. You just match this up at the top. And don't worry if the points don't match exactly. You can always kind of tape up the top at the end. And just pinch it together. You obviously see you're going to have to find a place at home that you can spread this out a little bit. Don't get glue on your mom's good dining room table. Put something down underneath if you're working there. Okay? And then if you're careful, if you don't let the glue slip or stick somewhere wrong, you can actually put another one on this side. So I'll do that too. Now, can you see how it's starting to come together to make something that looks like a balloon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this side too. And if you made pairs ahead of time, you could actually connect 2 pairs together. So you could make several pairs and then connect the pairs together. Every time you connect them together, be sure you're putting them what we call right sides together, that any seams you've already made are down underneath. And then this one goes on. Match up the top the best you can. And you can see it's easy and quick. The time-consuming part is letting it dry in between. Because if you try to do it all when it's wet, it's a mess and you're more likely to mess it up or tear it somewhere or get glue where you don't want glue. So it's really better to do just a couple steps at a time and let it dry. Now you can see if this were big enough and I connected these two, I've now got a closed balloon with an opening at the bottom. But this really isn't big enough around. So we're going to let this dry, and the next time I see you, we'll put another couple of pieces in, and I'll show you how to finish off the bottom with a wire. Okay? Till next time.